How are you, Chase? I really appreciate your time today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Damon. I've been watching your YouTube channel for a long time. You and Larry, both Bay Area sports radio legends. Growing up as a kid, I was very infatuated with the whole radio industry. And so to see you guys have that radio career and now parlay it into YouTube success, I think it's been awesome because, like any good business does, you have to adapt and evolve. You guys have been able to do that, and I appreciate the kind words as well for my YouTube channel.
Oh, thanks, brother. I mean it. I have learned an awful lot about how to go about doing it by just watching what you do, and your success is it's profound. You're over 150,000 subscribers, I think, now for 2 NFL teams. Ironically, it's the 49ers and Eagles. You got these 2 teams have been like this for the past few years, and you're all over both of them. It's always good to watch you, man. It's always good to see you, and thanks for joining me. I think it's the first time we've officially had you on here, and that means it's been far too long that we waited to extend the invitation. So it's great to have you here. And let's just hop right into the fact that, yes, preseason game. Yes, many of the starters and every single important 49er basically didn't even bother participating in that game. But there are still some truths to football. One of them is you never want to go 1 for 13 on third down. Another one is you never want to turn the ball over 4 times. Another one is you never want to give up 30 unanswered points. So there's an awful lot to not like from a game that we can all agree the results really don't matter, but there was a lot in that game that I did not like to see and creates concerns about depth. And we're starting right at offensive tackle and backup tackle, because I think the blinking neon light coming out of that first game is if Trent Williams or McKivitz misses a chunk of time, that would be the fastest way to pull on the thread that undoes the entire season sweater.
I agree with you. And of course, when you're talking about a preseason game, there are some storylines that you want to monitor. There are some things that you're looking out for. You want to see young players making plays. You want to see training camp performances translate to actual game action. You want to see some strides from some of your developmental pieces. You want to see former draft picks who haven't necessarily done much, like a Kalia Davis and Robert Beal, finally give you some juice and show you something. And to start this game, I was actually pretty impressed with how the Niners backups were able to march right down the field against a Broncos defense that was one of the top units in the NFL last year and score an opening drive touchdown. Specifically, you saw Mac Jones throw that beautiful 50-yard pass to Jordan Watkins. That showed me QB2, much better spot than it was last year, because I would take Mac over the likes of Joshua Dobbs and Brandon Allen, who should have never started a game for the 49ers last year. Jordan Watkins, 4.3 speed. He's been making plays in the spring and in the summer. And he also has really good ball tracking ability, which is very important for a speedster like that. He's not just a one-trick pony. It's like a center fielder who runs a great 60-yard dash. Can you track the ball in center field? If you can, great. You'll have a spot out there every day if you can also hit. If you can't track the ball, there's not going to be time for you. And so for a deep ball threat to do that, I thought that was great. And we saw some moments from some of these other young players, especially some UDFAs like Sebastian Valdez and Corey Kiner. I thought that CJ West and Alfred Collins were disruptive in either pushing the pocket or disrupting plays. So those are all positives, right? And I liked some of the exotic creative looks that we saw from Robert Saleh. How about how he used Chase Lucas to generate some pressures, which then resulted in that Bo Nix safety? All of these things were great. But then you also have to look at some of the negatives, right? Depth is going to be a concern for this football team. And John Lynch even said it. We're younger, and there could be some bumps along the road. And this is something that we thought could come to fruition when the Niners entered training camp with 18 or 19 rookies, draft class and UDFA. The depth is going to be tested. But something that really bothers me is something, Damon, that the Niners continue to ignore, and that is just the overall value of offensive line. And that's both starters and it's offensive line depth. Like, I just don't think that going into this year, you are good enough at left guard, you're not good enough at center, and you're okay at right tackle. But being okay is not good enough for me, because I do believe that a lot of games are won and lost in the trenches. And Kyle Shanahan has this philosophy as a former receiver. John Lynch kind of echoes that as a former safety, that they can scheme around offensive line problems. I don't think that you can scheme around offensive line problems. Maybe against some average to okay teams and bad teams in the NFL. But we have seen, Damon, in the biggest of games the last few years, when you go up against vaunted defenses, those defensive lines have been able to kick the Niners' asses for the most part along the offensive line. And you're right. If Colton McKivitz or Trent Williams were to get hurt, who are your backup offensive tackles? Spencer Burford has been a guard up until this point. I don't think he's quick enough to play left tackle and block the blind side of Brock Purdy, and Austin Pleasant's at right tackle behind Colton McKivitz, who's already like an average offensive tackle. That's really what stood out to me, is the lack of emphasis along the offensive line and offensive line depth to end my rant.
Drew Dolman was, to me, the one that got away.
Yes.
That was the free agent they needed to spend an awful lot of money on, kick over heaven and earth to make that happen. You're going to invest so much in Brock. And how about this? Whether you spend a lot of money on your quarterback or don't, protecting him is job one. And I just thought that would have been the single best way to improve a middle of the offensive line problem, even though you and I are talking about tackles right here. Every single lesson of last year's postseason was trench warfare is how you win wars. And it felt like we all knew what the Niners needed to do in the draft, with the exception of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Like they didn't see the right value at the pick that they had, and the guy that they might have wanted was gone. They kept on kicking the can so far down the road. To me, that's the fatal flaw that is built into a team that I still think is very good, very well coached, very well executed on offense. Robert Saleh being back in the room is, I think, among the small handfuls of really impactful offseason movement that we're going to see. I mean, Saleh is very important to this team, but I don't know if he's as important as an offensive line, and we will see how this all shakes out. Meanwhile, and I know it's not Shanahan calling plays. He had Kubiak do it. But at the same time, the fewest points scored in the NFC. They only got 9. You had Chase Lucas giving them 2 of them, right? So, I was joking around during a live stream saying I would have rather seen 3 Jake Moody field goals, because I would at least felt good about that, instead of just being held to 1 touchdown on an opening drive and then watching an offense basically get worse, disintegrate as a game goes along. I don't think I need to see more of Carter or Mordecai as at all. Like, those aren't even camp arms. Those guys look like civilians out there.
Yeah, the QB2 situation is a lot better than it's been in years past, because I do think that Mac Jones is a really good scheme fit. And finally, he is with a coach who I think can really help to maximize him in Kyle Shanahan. I don't think his offensive situations have been great with the New England Patriots, when, by the way, he was a Pro Bowler as a rookie, or with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But in Shanahan's offense, he loves a quarterback who can play point guard, who can get the ball out on time, in rhythm, accurately to his playmakers. And accuracy is very important, because Shanahan's going to do his job with the play designs to put players in a position to succeed in picking up yards after the catch if the quarterback can deliver the ball accurately. These are things that Brock Purdy does really, really well. And Mac Jones does that really well. We've seen it so far in training camp, and we saw what he's capable of in the preseason with that long ball. That's a quick decision. That's an accurate throw. Give your playmaker a chance on a 50-50 ball, and Jordan Watkins made that play. Now, the interception was on Watkins because he ran a sloppy route. There are over 100 routes in the Shanahan playbook, and so that's why sometimes it's very hard for wide receivers to grasp this offensive system. So you saw some great with Watkins. You saw some bad. That interception really wasn't on Mac Jones. So it's great that Brock Purdy's backup, it's in a much better spot than it has been. But yeah, you're totally right. I mean, Carter Bradley, Tanner Mordecai, they were a really, really rough watch. And Carter Bradley has arm strength, but he throws with absolutely no touch. He telegraphed all of his passes. He should have had more interceptions, frankly, I thought. Yeah. And I know that he was so good in that workout that the Niners had to sign him. But with how bad he looked, how bad Mordecai looked, where he was trying to run around like Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M and then just threw it right to the DB, like just an awful brain rot type of play. And it wouldn't surprise me with the Niners looking for a QB3 if, when it comes down to 53-man roster cutdown day, they're kind of scanning and canvassing that waiver wire to see if there's another quarterback who they could bring in to be that QB3. We've seen Shanahan maximize the likes of Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, now Mac Jones, Sam Darnold as well. but I don't think there's any maximizing to do with a Mordecai or a Bradley. I just don't think they're NFL players.
I was joking around saying that the single best quarterbacking afternoon coming out of that game was Curtis Rourke's.
Because yeah, he's a big winner.
Yeah, he just sat there and watched thinking like, oh, they're going to have a spot for me the minute I'm healthy and ready to go. These two guys.
He's just going to have a red shirt year, though, I think.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah. But he knows that there's going to be a spot coming up for him. There's no doubt about that. I guess we'll go over the concerns, and then we will get to some bright spots, because there were some bright spots to talk about. I think Nick Martin, by the way, is being incorrectly crushed as, sort of a beige spot. I don't mind mistakes of aggression. I don't mind someone who's trying to play so hard. Maybe they run past the play. You got to obviously, get that all under control eventually. But for a rookie playing a little over his skis, physical mistakes don't bother me as much as mental mistakes. I saw more physical than mental mistakes. He was around the play. I'll say this: Nick Martin might have missed some tackles, but he was there. His hat, his helmet was in the frame. I think he's going to be good, but it's going to take some time. That guy, you got to polish that ruby a little bit.
And I think that with him, obviously he over pursued. He was overly aggressive. He missed a few tackles. But again, like, this is a preseason game. So you're looking for the possibilities. You're looking for the potential. And with good coaching, with development, as the game slows down, as he becomes a more experienced player after he didn't play all that much last year because of a knee injury, what can you build off of? I will take the foundation of a player who has diagnosing skills, who has a good feel, who can read and react, who can be in the right place at the right time. That's what Nick Martin was doing. I'll take a foundation of playing with unbelievable play speed, a lot of physicality, and a lot of tenaciousness, where if the game does slow down, if he harnesses some of that aggression, you see what he's capable of doing. There was a play where he ran down the Broncos running back who they used a high draft pick on, who runs 4.4, and Nick Martin was able to get through some muddied up traffic and run him toward the boundary. That's a positive sign. He at least was in a position to make plays. Did he dot the exclamation point? Did he finish those plays? No. But you can work off of that foundation. And so Nick Martin was a loser for me in that preseason game because the plays were there and he couldn't capitalize. There was money on the table and he wasn't able to cash in, right? But you see what the Niners saw in him, which is why they used a third-round pick, that this guy has that Azeez Al-Shire, Dre Greenlaw, Diamador Lenore type of mentality in between the ears that Fred Warner also has, but he just has to harness that aggression a little bit. And honestly, he reminded me a little bit, Damon, of D. Winters early on. Like, D. Winters had that type of mental makeup, but he over pursued plays and he would fail to throttle down. But last year, you started to see the game slow down a little bit. Then he started to make those plays that previously he was missing.
I saw, I think it was reported earlier that, both West and Collins had 0 pressures. I think that got upgraded to 1 pressure. Okay. I do know that West absolutely opened the door for that Kalea Davis sack, and that he was pushing the pocket. And I'm not worried about CJ West at all. I am putting a little bit of a red flag, though, on Alfred Collins. He seems, as big as he is, he exposes his chest. And I just think, hey, here's the thing. If he is getting double teamed, he's doing his job.
Yes.
But I don't know how many tackles or how many sacks this guy is going to have. I hope he's more than Javon Kinlaw 2.0. I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah. So I think a good analogy here, I know you're a baseball guy, but when it comes down to pitchers, right? Like, wins and losses don't always tell the full story. Like, a pitcher could have an ERA in the low 3s, the high 2s. He could be 1-15, right? But you look at the ERA, you look at the whip, you look at some of the advanced numbers to truly gauge how impactful he is as a pitcher. For defensive linemen, everybody looks at sacks and pressures and quarterback hits as the sexy numbers. But I thought Saturday's game was a great illustration of looking beyond the box score. Did you feel and sense Alfred Collins and CJ West in that game? Throughout moments, you did. And you did because of stats that didn't show up in the box score. But when you watch that game, were they disruptive? Did they collapse the pocket? Did they generate pressure on the quarterback without having that direct quarterback pressure? Did they impact the game? Did you feel them out there? I thought at times against the run, they forced the running back to go in a different direction. Against the pass, they moved the quarterback off the spot, whether the quarterback had to move to his right, to his left, or have to step up in the pocket, which then led to a quarterback hit, or in the Kalia Davis area, that sack, right? So I thought that Alfred Collins and CJ West at moments, they were impactful beyond just looking at the traditional stats, because they absorbed double teams. They forced a running back to go in a different direction. They blew plays up. They caused some destruction with them being out there. With Alfred Collins, keep in mind, he missed all of the spring, and he's been a little bit slow to start training camp. But he's 6'5", 330, and you're right. Like, if he's taking on double teams to allow other players to make plays, I don't think his numbers as a rookie are going to be gaudy, but is his impact going to be felt? I think so. Now, when you're 6'5", 330, yeah, sometimes you're upright and you can't get good leverage. That's why the coaching staff has said, when you get stopped, don't stop. We need you to keep going. With a player like CJ West, he's 6'1", that allows him to get really good leverage with those violent hands to disengage offensive linemen off of him. So two different players who look different with the way that they play, with their playing styles. But I think either way, whether they're recording numbers or not, they do have the ability as rookies to impact the game just by being disruptive with their own playing styles.
Everybody likes to make a bet on their undrafted free agent who might crack the roster. Isaiah Nayer was popular early on.
Yeah.
And I told everyone, I'm like, he's built like Randy Moss, but he was undrafted and at 6'5" and can fly. Something's not quite right there. Sure enough, he's already in Green Bay. We'll see if he even makes their roster. And I also said, this Sebastian Valdez guy, there's just something there. Again, I just watched him hit sleds. I watched him in practice early on down in Santa Clara, and I kept on tapping Kruger on the shoulder. I'm like, this guy's going to be on the team, dude. I think this guy's going to be on the, slow down, Dame. I think this guy's going to be on the team. I think that guy's going to be on the team.
Yeah, I think so too. And for Isaiah Nayer, 6'4", 220, runs 4.4 flat, but he had 2 college seasons of 10-plus catches at Wyoming, Texas, and Nebraska. And when you're that physically gifted, I think that you should be able to dominate a little bit better. My scouting notes on him going into the draft was, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. And I think that's the issue with a guy like that. He can't maximize the athletic ability. He's too inconsistent. And I think he's a good developmental piece. I don't think the Niners should have cut him as early as they did. I would have wanted to see what he could do in some preseason games. They felt something else. With Sebastian Valdez, though, you see NFL qualities. It's violence at the snap. It's a quick get off. I thought it was very impressive how in that game there were times where he slithered through a couple of offensive linemen to make a play, or again, disrupt a play, which then helped to other players being able to make plays. And you see some of the NFL attributes there. He's really built. There's a reason why Dominic Pooney and other guys are calling him the Hulk, because he plays and looks like that, but he also has some violence to him. He has some explosion for his size. He was good against the pass. He was good against the run. And I think all of that combined with the fact that the Niners are a little bit thin at defensive tackle, he has a great chance to make the team. And for Kyle Shanahan to say he probably flashed the most out of anybody, I thought that was really notable after the game. But look out for Sebastian Valdez to make this team and potentially be a rotation guy. In June, I did a video. Niners may have found a hidden gem on the 49ers report. I talked about Sebastian Valdez, and what I talked about there was what we saw on Saturday night. It was very promising.
What is the cherry that you're putting on top of a pretty disappointing Saturday? A player, a moment, the standout? What's the one thing that you take away from our first preseason look at the 49ers and think that this actually translates into something we see in the regular season?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, right? I think the Niners are going to have one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL with Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, and Brant Boyer. I think top to bottom, that's a really good collection of coaches that can help you in all 3 phases of the game. And also remember, the Niners went up 9-0 because of what they did offensively and defensively with their 2s against the Broncos 1s. Things started to fall apart once they put their third stringers in there. How often, though, in the regular season are we going to see a lot of these third stringers? And so I do have depth concerns once you really start to tap into the depth spots at a couple of different positions, right? But if you put the starters on the field with the play that we saw from some of the backups against the Broncos starters, you're like, okay, we could see something here. And so I like to see that. I enjoyed seeing some of the flashes that we saw from these youth pieces, because let's be real, like, this is a youth-laden team, and they're going to need these young players to have roles here in 2025. And we saw with some of those performances on Saturday night, okay, there could be some rough patches. There could be some moments where they fail to make some plays, but you see what they're capable of doing. You're seeing what they could become. And with quality coaching, that helps put these players in a position to succeed. It helps to streamline their development. It helps them feel confident. And on defense, specifically with Saleh, we saw a huge jump from last year with Nick Sorensen. I thought last year the defense was indecisive. They weren't confident. They were thinking too much, which then led to a lot of hesitation. With Saleh, though, early in that game, they were firing on all cylinders. They weren't thinking. They were just going out there and they were playing fast. And I think that's a really positive development coming out of that game on Saturday.
What do you think of just the way the 49ers have been attacking preseason under Shanahan, where, less is certainly more from any starter or important players? This is the same league that sees like each team sort of approach preseason differently. The guy who needs the least amount of preseason snaps probably in the world of football is Patrick Mahomes. But sure enough, he was out there, Brock Purdy was not. I'm not saying that Brock needs the most amount of preseason snaps, but these are two different philosophies. What do you think of the way the 49ers cut the baby on preseason?
Well, I think they were happy with how the joint practice went on Thursday, how the offense started slow, then finished strong with what the defense was able to do. The red zone execution early wasn't good. Then they executed late. A lot of teams nowadays will use those joint practices as kind of like a de facto preseason game. But Kyle Shanahan's MO, the last few years at least, has been to play starters at some point during the preseason. And so 2 preseason games left, right? I think that the Niners at some point, whether it be against the Raiders, whether it be against the Chargers, they're going to play their starters at least a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half. Shanahan has shown a history of doing that. If he doesn't do that, I'm raising a red flag, because with so many new parts, with so many young players, with changes to your coaching staff, nothing will simulate live bullets flying, being and playing in an actual game. The Niners need to get some actual game reps in, especially offensively. You have a new left guard. Your wide receiver core has been remade. You need to figure out what you can get from these backup backs. I thought last year the offense really lacked like synergy. And because of that, that's why they didn't have long sustained drives. They were so Jekyll and Hyde and inconsistent because there were so many moving parts with all the injuries. So I hope that in the last 2 preseason games, we see the starters for an extended period at least once. If that doesn't happen, then yeah, I'm going to be fired up, because this team has a lot to work on. And this week 1 opponent in Seattle, it's not going to be easy, especially with Shanahan going up against a defensive mind and Mike McDonald, who he struggled with and against here in his career.
I'm telling you, man, if this team can get off to a good start against this schedule, oh my God, does the year get so much easier.
No doubt about it.
It really does. I mean, 4-0 against this schedule is worth 6-0 in a normal year. It really is. So let's hope that they can get off to a good start. I hand you the menu and say, sir, you get to order anything you like. You get to see one of them in the preseason game against the Raiders next Saturday. What are you ordering? Where are your eyes going to be on Saturday? What do you hope to see? An individual, a series? You get to dial it up. What do you want in this Raiders game?
Well, we'll see if Michael Williams practices this week. He might be out a week, but like, him and Upton Stout are the 2 players who I really want to see in game action. With Michael Williams, you used a first-round pick on him, whether it's preseason game number 2 or 3, he needs to play. And I want to see how Robert Saleh utilizes him. Defensive tackle, defensive end, how does he set the edge? How does that power, length, and physicality translate to the NFL level? The Niners have him listed as a starter opposite of Nick Bosa with that first-string defensive line. Is he going to be able to be impactful as a rookie? With Upton Stout, I think that he, like Michael Williams, should be a starter for this team at slot nickel corner. Does his 4-4 speed translate? Does the sticky coverage carry over to the game? Did the ball skills carry over to actual game action? So Michael Williams, Upton Stout, those are the players who I want to see, because I saw a little bit from CJ West. I saw a little bit from Alfred Collins. Marquise Siegel was really impressive at that safety position. Now I want to see Michael Williams and Upton Stout and see what they can do.
First day I walked on the field at rookie minicamp, I saw Upton Stout for the first time, and I was just like, I don't get it. What are you kidding me? That's just, no, that he's small for a small NFL player. And you're telling me this is going to be a defensive solution? I just don't see it. First day in pads, I saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. It is so funny when you allow a guy to put on brass knuckles, it changes the way you look at him as a fighter. And that guy in pads is so much different than what you see just cutting a physical figure. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him. I thought he was getting the veteran treatment when he was scratched from the
Me
like,
too.
oh, he's getting the Bosa. He's that much on the team. Wow. Yeah. But no, I guess he tweaked a little something, and that's why he wasn't out there.
Let me add Ricky Pearsall to that too, Dan.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to see Ricky Pearsall, who everybody's saying, man, he's having a training camp like Ayuk did in 2022 and 2023 when he was the best offensive player on the field. He's been winning one-on-ones. He's been really good in team drills. He has that connection going with Brock Purdy. He needs to have a big year this year and stay healthy for this Niners offense to reach its peak. Is all of the talk about Ricky Pearsall real? Is he going to justify the Niners using a first-round pick on him, or is he going to continue to get hurt, and is he not all that good? That's another player who I really want to see in the preseason too.
Yeah. By the way, Texas Niner comes in here and says, Damon, curious about history. Isn't the history of the 49ers having a losing preseason record and then have a winning record in the regular season? I don't know about all the histories, but I can tell you this assuredly. In one of the worst coached seasons I've ever seen from the San Francisco 49ers, Mike Singletary went undefeated in the preseason. So, that's what to make of it. The answer is no one really knows. A lot of opinions count. That's why I seek opinions that I care about, and those opinions belong to Chase Senior. And Chase, thank you for joining me today. This was great, man. I really appreciate having you on. Any tips for an up-and-coming, young, growing YouTube channel that you could pass along to old uncle trying to figure it the fuck out over here?
Man, it was good to join you and good to chop it up with you. The only time that I've really talked Niners with you is when you, me, and Larry kind of did a triple trifecta stream and collaboration. So it was fun. I think consistency is always important when you're trying to grow a YouTube channel. Like, my pillars as a broadcaster, and anytime I'm in front of a camera on a microphone, I want all of the content to be informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking, and I want the audience to be involved. And so that's really what I take seriously. Obviously, different generations of broadcasters, you and I, but I grew up idolizing the likes of Colin Cowherd, Dan Patrick, Scott Van Pelt, Rich Eisen, because they always have done and do those things for me, where when I watch them, I'm like, they make a really good point, and they get my brain going in a way where I didn't necessarily think about that, but now I am. And so I try to do that as a host. I think, titles and thumbnails are very interesting, but if you produce quality content and the fans feel involved and they're engaged, I think that they're going to continue to come back, especially if you're consistent with it. So
it's great advice, brother. I'm going to take it. I'm going to apply it. And I tell you what, I thank you again for joining me. Really, really appreciate it, man. Keep up your great work. And let's do it again sometime. You, me, and Kruger all need to get in the same room. Let's do this sometime.
Hey, if we were all in the same room together, in person, I know that we could smoke some cigars and have some great drinks. Maybe that'll just lead to great content. We could do that at some point.
We could absolutely do that. Now, so you got to come up to San Francisco, or you're in Texas, right?
I'm in Texas. Yeah.
Are you, by the way, are you in Austin? Can you rip open your shirt and already show me that you're wearing an Arch Manning jersey? I know that the Longhorns are #1 in the AP for the first time ever. I'm guessing the parade is already going around the campus 3-4 times.
Yeah, so I'm in Dallas. I'm from Philly, but I've lived in Illinois. I've lived in California.
Right. I know you're not I don't hear a twang. You're not wearing.
Yeah, I had to get rid of I used to have a Philly twang. But I had to get rid of that when I was on television prior to this job, because I would say water instead of water.
Oh, water.
Our O's and A's are kind of extended a little bit. So I've gotten rid of that accent. But yeah, I'm in Dallas.
You're going to wash your truck?
Exactly. Yeah. Go down to the crick, not the creek. Very weird lingo and accents up in the Northeast. But yeah, I'm in Dallas now. The Texas hype is real. I mean, statewide, it is a very Texas Longhorns heavy state, of course. And the Arch Manning hype is for real. So yeah, I'll have to get up to San Francisco and we'll have to share some drinks sometime for sure.
You get up here, we'll do that. We'll do that, brother. Thank you so much, Chase. You have a great one.
You as well.